All right, video blog for today. Some thoughts from this last week. The biggest one was this, and I've always had this, is better auto-regulation of workouts. So what I mean by that is you go in on the day, you have, let's just say, this is probably the most common thing, right? Big squat day. This is not necessarily the lingo I tend to use, but it's very common, like big squat day, or heavy squat day. But you come in on the day and your nervous system isn't feeling, snappy. The bar feels heavy, like 4 plates or 3 plates on each side feels like 4 plates, or 2 plates feels like 3 plates. We've all been there in this like depressed nervous system state. Or you could vary in a more athletic oriented sense. This could be like fly 10 day. It's fly 10 sprint day. It's 30 meter sprint day, 40 yard sprint day. That's the primary emphasis. I don't feel as fast as normal, etc. If it was the former, so it's a big squat day, usually the mindset is grind, get the weight anyways, get the set anyways. The slower the movement, the more compensators that we can bring in. So there's a higher chance you could get the weight anyways in a slightly depressed nervous system state, especially if you're still learning the lift, you're not an expert yet. Because there's more ways you can wiggle under the bar, there's more ways you can finagle the weight, there's more ways you can cheat. I think that's what we don't think of a lot. Once obviously you get to a certain point of training, you can't do that anymore. That was a little sun glare there as I walk back and forth. Like sprinting, that's not the case. Or jumping, or anything that's dynamic and high velocity. Like if you read Franz Bosch's last book on strength training coordination, a piece I really like in there is you think of it like the word escapes me, basically a cylinder spinning really fast, and the faster you go, the less muscles can act outside their natural and intended function. So you can't compensate. If it's a fly 10 day and your nervous system's down, you're just not going to run as fast. Generally speaking, not always 100% the case, but generally speaking, you're probably not going to run as fast on the day. You're not going to jump as high on the day. And that's where, like Charlie Francis, being we're in the speed, power, athletic skill vein of things, he would say, if you know you're not going to improve on the day, and I think his was 2%. He may have been speaking for lifting too, but he said, don't do it. Like there's not a point in doing this if you're not going to get better. And so in the auto-regulation realm, you hear there's a lot of like things in the lines of maybe an RPE, or have you super compensated yet, or making sure maybe you're lifting the empty bar and you're just seeing what it feels like if you're ready to work out that day. Or you have to guess the amount of days till you're super. I've been down that road, and I know it could work for some, but I don't like it. For me personally, and this is why, is just because in that realm of thinking, what if you have a team and you have a lot of different athletes who may all be in a little different place? Well, one simple thing that you can do in that case is you just have, like, let's say red, yellow, and green workouts. So you're down, your nervous system's down over 5, 6, 7%, whatever. You maybe use a tap test, a grip test, whatever. You're down, okay, you're in the red, okay, you get maybe extreme isos and that's it today. Or just a med ball circuit, something general circuit. We had lifting planned, you're just gonna do this general circuit instead. If you're in the yellow, maybe if it was sets of reps of 3 to 5, maybe you're gonna do reps of 5 to 8, or a single set of 10 or something. And if you're in the green, you're good to go with the intended workout. So there's always those ways of auto-regulating and just fitting it to where you're on the day, which is awesome. I've kind of further taken that idea and thought, so because that's, to me, like if you have a set workout schedule and it's just you, okay, you could drive yourself nuts. Like if it was like, I want to wait till like I'm feeling good enough to do this next day of fly 10s. I'll wait till I'm feeling good enough to do this next day where I'm lifting heavy, or whatever your high power output is. I feel like it can drive people a little nuts to wait and the game of like, am I good enough today? Am I not good enough today? And then you're also spending days where you're not necessarily working out, and we want to keep the nervous system hot and fresh. And we also want to maintain a level of athletic fitness and shape. And especially as we get older, and your carb metabolism slows down, or a variety of factors really, but you want to work a little bit more often. I think just because there's certainly people who can get away with training not often, and I think that's great. I think there's situations where that definitely can be the case, absolutely. But I also think in the sake of like myself too, like very elastic, high priority on elasticity. I like to move. I need to move a lot. I need to keep my fascial engines running, and I just like working out. So better ways of regulating on the day is the big thing I've been thinking of the last week. And so let's just take that red, yellow, green. So wherever you are on the day, red, yellow, green, how do I decide what to do? So let's just say that is like 40-yard dash day, okay, because that's the epitome of something that's fast and powerful and athletic. Squat day, it could work that for that too, or whatever big day it is. But I think that the more, like, this is really to speak for those pure athletic skills, and you have these planned, and you may or may not be feeling the best. So, and some things and thought processes that have come my way in this has been like the idea of speed gate golf and variability and gamification and everything that has to do with that. And so if it's 40-yard dash day and it's green light day, my thoughts and direction have really generally been it's ratios a little bit. You always want a part of the workout that's about exploring, waking up joints, exploring the sensory capacity of the body. So you always want that part of it all. And then I think you also want that part where there's not necessarily the pure outcome portion of it. So not necessarily, but I mean, if you're feeling good, by all means, I think it's okay to go and run 3-4 40-yard dashes fast, and each one's relatively speaking about as fast as you can go. I also like the idea of offering at least a few of those sprints a chance for an athlete to explore something new. Maybe you run it with one arm, or you run it with a certain emphasis on rhythm, or what a different body segment's doing, different awareness of a level of posture or way the foot's striking. And you can couple that with different sensory drills before and after the movement, as well as the way you warm up. But those are generally your go days. No real new information here, just as most good coaches would say, you have to cut it before you do too much. So you're running 3 good 40s. Maybe you once you get in that fourth, I think this is like a big Tony Holler thing, or maybe Chris Korfus said something along those lines, but like you really want to be mindful of if you're going to allow them that fourth sprint. And you need to be mindful of all these extra, because the kids are going to want to keep going, but to cut that early is really critical, especially when you're pushing yourself really hard. So those days are straightforward. Just stop sooner rather than later and leave athletes wanting more. I think you could say the same thing for lifting, and that's where easy strength kicks in. Okay, so here's where I think it gets important, is like yellow and red days. And so again, you can measure this stuff by, not to put a box on an athlete, but tap tests are pretty accurate. Like there's a tap test on the iPad where you can go 10 taps 10 seconds of tapping and see how many you can get. And relatively speaking, that's going to give you a pretty good indicator of where you are in the day. There's always different factors. I think different ways your system is tuned up, your fascial system's tuned up. But from a brain perspective, if you're doing 10 less taps in 10 seconds than other days, you're not going to hit a PR that day, no matter what. It's sad to say, like there's maybe the self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's a good information, because a lot of people would be tapped less and be really like annoyed at that, or said, I'm going to grind through this. But I think our job as coaches, or if you're training yourself, is to create a framework around, okay, you're in the yellow, or maybe we don't call it that. Maybe we call it something else. But you're in a level now in the middle where, or the red, let's just say we're in the yellow. Maybe you're 5 taps less than normal. You're down about 5% on nervous system. You could have a good day, but chances are you're probably going to press yourself hard. You're not going to hit quite what you want to, and you might not feel the greatest about it, and that's okay. I think it also could probably work different. The way that athletes judge themselves can impact this too. I definitely am hard on myself, and I know a lot of athletes are. So I think those days, those yellow days, are a fantastic, absolutely awesome day for a speed gate golf mentality. I also think the good days could be a speed gate. Like I said, I would feed speed gate golf in the early stages of those days, and work with different technical elements. But the yellow days are prime speed gate golf type days, and maybe you put it just a little bit out of reach. So maybe your best in the 30 meters is a 4.1 and 4.10, and you say, hey, I want you to run 4.25 today. We're going to throw some different technical elements in there that you can hit, have awareness of, think different things we're going to do, different ways we're going to approach it. Maybe we open you up to a new window of sensing and just see how it impacts technique. And my goal for you is to hit this time as close as you can. But we're not trying to necessarily PR. You'll make me happy if you hit this time today. You can also those are also days too where you can go a little more distance. Like if you had 40-yard dashes on the day or 30 meters. Maybe you go to the next nervous system chunk down, which was what Ross Jeffs talked about in the podcast we did together, where racers versus trainers, trainers tend to do better with basically almost the next nervous system block over, like Christian Thibodeau says in neurotyping. I need to train in the next nervous system intensity block down, meaning the super fast twitch, powerful nervous system person might do really well with 3:30s all out, 4:30 meters all out, long rest. There may be other athletes who may not tolerate that quite as well because they do a little bit better off a little less intensity and a little more endurance. So maybe they go 4x80 at 95%. And they would recover faster from that and be ready for the next workout quicker. So a little bit longer distance, slightly less intensity. You're still getting a lot of good stimulation to the system. I mean, at some point we do need to challenge our maximal capabilities, but even maximal and things like maximal and strength I think there's a little bit of leeway and ambiguity as to as long as intention is maximal with performance and where you want to go. I think like saying 95% on this effort rather than 100 can yield some good things. So more speed gate golf, more gamification. You can increase the distance a little bit, okay, and shorten the rest a little bit, and maybe even invoke a general theme of a little bit like take a longer warm up, increase muscle temperature more before you get going, expose them to more movements, try to keep them prioritize the flow state to keep them out of their head that this is a day like, I can't run the fastest time, 30 I've ever ran today. Make it okay. That's the key. And then the last would be like the red zone. What do I do if I'm in the red, I'm coming down and I'm really down, like my taps are 10 down today, 10% down. And I feel heavy or the bar feels like 1,000,000 pounds. Well, the easiest thing to do is probably just do some isos, some extreme isos and go home. And for if you have a lot of athletes and you just need to like designate, boom, 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 here you go. That's a great thing. I've recently, and this has just been in my own training, so this is kind of N01, but I'm not the only one who trains like this, is just to make it total non-specific and total exploration driven. What I mean by that is just pick a lot of general exercises and find different ways to experience those in the general, like what Jeremy Frisch talks about in like Dan Paff's general strength circuits, how it can help improve athletes' technique on its own, just getting better at all the general ways the body can move, waking up joints in all different angles that will help ultimately the body and brain to self-organize movement on its own. Which is always so it's like you're working on something that's not specific, but it really is. At the end of the day, the better you can do with it, the more fun you can have, the more joints you can work, the more angles you keep your fitness and you keep your good general levels up. I mean, that's the general. So ISO is general. A flow state is critical in these days, in my opinion. I mean, it's always is, but even more on like a red zone day where it's like, okay, yellow, maybe I do a little bit more distance. Red, I think the fitness and the heart rate staying up is important to that. Largely just to get athletes, I just think it's a good way to be in the present, to be in the present moment in the workout, knowing that maybe you're not your best today. Maybe you're not going to get this objective you hope today, but you know what, I'm going to be in the present and I'm going to find a fun way to move my body. So like I did a workout like this the other day, definitely red zone, way down in taps, and just pick like 15 exercises and just found new ways to explore that consistently, music with a good steady beat and rhythm to it. And even thinking about what like Tommy John said, Dr. Tommy John in his office, he does these clocks and there's no time on the clock. It's just a second hand going around. and even like taking yourself out of time, like this workout needs to be this long, just totally being in the present, just having fun, doing different movements and motions. I've found it's incredible for those days, and you just treat it for what it is. It is what it is, and you know what, you're going to come back and be better. But to me, always setting a PR, always having to be better, no matter what, leads to grinding and compensations and this continual beat down of the nervous system that, some athletes can make that through that a little bit, if their intention's strong enough, that group cohesion and effort's strong enough. But at the end of the day, to recognize where we are and embrace where we are and live in the present with where we are and treat the workout as such is awesome. But like specifically speaking too, if you really want to be specific with the red zone day and it's a lift, if it's squat day, I mean, maybe that's your 1x20 at 50% day, that's just treat that for what it is, just to make it simple, right? I like ISOs. If it's a sprint day and you have to do some running, maybe you'd replace with some tempo sprinting, like just run a few like easy 150s, 200s on shorter rest, and then do some fun different element to allow that athlete to be in the present with what it is, and not like to not have the mind kind of wander into the past and where else you should have been at this workout. Staying in the present is so critical. And so those are some things I've been pondering, and I hope you guys enjoy that aspect of where mine's been going. So until next time on the video blog.